Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm creating a card featuring the You Make My Heart race from My Favorite Things. This one was released during the March release and I didn't got to play with it yet. But as you know from other videos, I truly adore these Tiddly Inks stamps that My Favorite Things is releasing every month. And this one is just really adorable. I decided to first start with the coloring, knowing that I wanted to use this image and then see where this card was going to end up like. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm trying to have my shadows on the, left side. My light source is on the right side, so that's why I am starting with my darkest color every time, more towards the left for each part of this image. Another thing that you know that I always start with is with the hardest parts of the image, which is for me normally when I'm coloring people is the skin tone and the hair. I'm doing this now for a while, so I'm more used to coloring hair, but still I find this way of coloring, I love the end result, but it's still outside somehow of my comfort zone, although I do it quite often. It's something that I'm just not getting used to. So that's why I start with that. Another thing that was going to be a challenge for this image is the scooter, or the, I don't know how it's called otherwise, but the vehicle. I don't color vehicles quite often, and so I wanted to have enough dimension there as well, so that's why I'm also continuing with that after the hair, after the skin. So here and there I'm just doing some flicking on the hair. I'm trying to follow those lines, which is something that I would recommend to anyone who is like me, well, like I was previously. I was scared of any image with people, and then the amazing Rochelle Anna Miller contacted me whether I was interested to be on her design team, and I just love Rochelle Anna Miller, but she has a lot of images with people. So I had to get outside of that comfort zone to try to really color them and do that. And that's how I came to realize that as Rochelle Anna Miller, as Tiddly Inks here, there are guidelines in the hair. As you can see, the illustrator already drew in some lines which can help you with the flow of the hair and in which direction you need to flick to get the end result that you have here and in other cards that I share here. And so if you're scared of doing people, and their hair is one of the hardest parts if you want to get a realistic or more realistic idea, I truly find that the hair is difficult. But in this case, and Rochelle Anna Miller's, you have these lines, and so if anytime you want to start on people, definitely try to find images where you are helped in a way by those guidelines, as I call them, because there are other images that are gorgeous as well. Nothing against people that don't have the guidelines, but it's really hard because there you have to decide yourself how the hair will be flowing, and sometimes it's only in the end that you will realize that it's not realistic what you did. Not that anything needs to be realistic, because this is a hobby and it's all about having fun, liking the end result. But if you want to have something like this, then in the end it can be sort of disappointing, which I had for myself quite often. And doing hair like this, in images like this, also helped me in cases that I don't have the guidelines, because I have some examples in my head of how the hair could be flowing, but it's all because of illustrators like Rochelle Anna Miller, like Tiddly Inks, that for me it sort of clicked and it is getting easier. But I do understand the struggle if you're not there yet to do some people, because it's really particular and it is, well, it comes with some difficulties. But I also know that you can do this, and the moment you put your head towards it and you think, now I'm going to start doing that, and you go for it, then you can do anything you want. That being said, as you see, I've started on the vehicle, and so it was a bit figuring out which was going to be in which color, and I decided to go with teals, which also led me to using yellows for the dress. It is a combination that I use quite often if I don't know what to do with markers. There is always a combination in your head, you know it works. Yellow and teals, they reinforce each other, it's beautiful. They are so powerful, the both of them, but they are not battling each other, they are reinforcing each other. So that's what I'm doing here. I know that this combination works, so why not use it? Another thing, as I like doing clean and simple cards, and this image is a bit more intricate than just a clean image or a simple image, I tend to reuse colors, so that's also why the vehicle has all these same teals all over. I'm not trying to reinvent a combination. I just use the colors that I already had to help me with the creation of this image and later on the card as well. As I said here, the yellow combination. Something that I also like to do when I want to have a bit more contrast or a bit more interest in the image is elongating lines that are there, or in the skirt here I just emphasized one of the wrinkles in the skirt to have a bit more of dimension. That's a way to give more interest to your images. You don't have to do it because the images itself are gorgeous enough to just stand on their own as they were planned. But you can definitely add a few details more if you want to. That's an option you always have. So I'm almost at the end of the coloring. I still have to do a few colors here, just making sure to do the wheels as well. Something that I find difficult, however, because you want them to appear rounded. Something that could have helped was to leave a bit of a gap in between the line and your darkest marker to have that sort of appear rounded, but I didn't do that here. All options. But I did try to have again the shadows on the left side, so also halfway the tire I did that as well. And then we are almost there with the coloring. Also still need to do the flowers. So just quickly going there. It's also a tiny image, so you don't need to add a lot of layers to get the coloring there. I went for a bit of a pinkish color. So I'm just using a few really light reds. I started with the R02, but it's just a bit too light, so I used the R05 as well. Just to add a bit more interest, but not too much. I don't want these flowers to distract from the rest of the image, as that's really, the rest is more important here. So once they were colored in, time to take out the matching dies. There are also other images in the stamp set, but personally I just love featuring one image, and this one is definitely big enough to be featured on its own, but you can always add one of the two others as well. Now for the background, I decided to take some stencils, and I have this stencil. This is the Watercolor Lines background stencil from Honeybee Stamps, and I have looked for the name because the name wasn't on the die, and I am afraid that this one isn't sold anymore. And if that is really the case, then I'm kind of disappointed because I really love this stencil. So I hope you have something similar. Other brands already have released sort of similar stamps as well. Watercolor Lines, I first thought of doing just lines, but having this big of an image, I looked for a stencil with quite big lines as well. Don't know why, maybe just proportions in my head, but I only had smaller lines, straight lines, so I needed this one. And then for the distressings, I decided to start with Speckled Egg, and then I realized that it wasn't exactly the same color. It sort of mimicked, and I needed something brighter than Cracked Pistachio, or darker is more suitable, but it just wasn't perfect. And then I thought, well, maybe just a combination of my favorite distressing, Cracked Pistachio, and a Speckled Egg might work. And I must admit, this color is spot on. I truly couldn't be happier with how this combination turned out. Sometimes you just need to mix inks in a way. And maybe I was doubting whether the evergreen ball was going to be more similar, but I don't think it would, because that would be a bit too dark again, I think. For the ink blending, I also decided to not die cut my panel first, just because, as you can see, the bottom row here is smaller, and the upper row as well from the stencil, and I didn't know where I wanted that to be, or whether I wanted to have that excluded from my panel or not. So once I was happy with placement here, I figured out sentiment really simple on one of the wide rows. I could add my A2 sized die and just cut it out first before adding the sentiment. So here I'm definitely playing around with the idea of not having that smaller row there, but for the grounding, sort of, it worked. So you can still decide with an image like this and a background like this to have your image leaning on top of the colored stripe or not. There are also pattern papers out there with similar designs, so if you don't have a stencil like this, then maybe you have some sort of a pattern paper that can work. So I'm now adding the sentiment, and then I added lots of thin foam squares on the back of my image. I'm going to remove all of the backings and add the image on top of my panel. And then this card is almost finished. You can add a lot more if you want to. I just added this panel on top of my card base. And then I decided to finish off my card using a few heart sprinkles. You know me, it's my favorite kind of embellishment. I decided to go with black licorice since, since I just have the outline in black, so you have always that option. But then I didn't like the black licorice on the vehicle, and I did like the vehicle with the heart on. So I decided to add white on a scooter and then have black hearts on the rest of the card. Really simple, not a lot, just a few here and there. And once I was happy with placement, I adhered it all down using some liquid glue. And that is actually going to be my card. I'm not adding anything more. It's a really simple card, but as you can see, this image is quite big. So it already fills up that card quite lovely. And then the background with those watercolor lines, it's really organical. It's not neat and tidy. It's a bit rough, but I really like that with the image as well. And I think everything shines in its own way this way. So that is my card for today. Really simple, but I love this image from the You Make My Heart race. I also love the sentiment. It has something really, really cute, a Happy Meal card. And I hope that you love it as well. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I want to thank you all for taking the time to watch this video and stopping by. I truly appreciate you all. If you enjoyed this video, you can always give it a thumbs up. I would truly appreciate that. As I said, I want to thank you, and I wish you all an incredible day, and I'll be back soon with some new crafty inspiration. Bye!